Tuff Talk Show is brought to you by One Vision Productions. It's time for Tuff Talk Show.
Welcome to Tuff Talk Show. I'm your host, Forrest Tuff, and today's episode is on motherhood. Our first guest is Kai Lindbergh, the Executive Director of Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies. And we're going to talk about her journey as a mother and how she became the Executive Director of this wonderful organization. Kai, welcome to the show.
Thanks. I'm so happy to be here.
Tell us a little bit about your journey and how you became involved with Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies.
Well, first and foremost, I'm a mother of three amazing young men, ages 5, 6, and 18. I probably know way more about Lego and cosplay than I'd like to admit. My motherhood journey was complicated, but very beautiful. At 21, I was broke and felt like I didn't have a voice, and my sons and my health were compromised as a result. I'm proud to say, though, when I had my other two funny little guys, I not only knew the power of my voice, but also had an income that opened up a world of opportunities for my family. As cliche as this might sound, I developed a whole new appreciation for my own mother, Miss Feliza, when I had my sweet boys. I owe my determination, kindness, and resourcefulness to that beautiful woman. What she lacked in formal education, she more than made up for by leveraging her community and public resources to make sure my brothers and I were okay. We did grow up having very little, but because she never gave up on herself or her children, I was able to graduate both high school and college, and also later went on to work for a senior member of Congress and serve as a leader for several local and national nonprofit organizations focused on supporting families in my hometown of Detroit, but also across the entire Midwest and Southeast.
So Kai, that's amazing. And what I'm hearing from you is that you came from humble beginnings, but you had a mother that instilled in you a certain work ethic and a mindset to not be troubled or be a product of just your environment, to always strive for more. And it seems you've done that. Can you tell us how those lessons have helped you move into this new position as Executive Director of Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies?
Yeah. So if you can't tell in a few minutes of us talking, I definitely lead with my heart and service in mind. To spare you all the gory details, I fell in love 7 years ago now with a dude who was a police officer. And lo and behold, I have two additional little dudes to my crew. And we were really thinking about where in the world do we want to raise these little guys moving forward? And every time we visited Georgia, we have tons of friends here, and he actually served for APD prior to us relocating, and he's actually back there now. But we decided Georgia was the place for us. Neither of us had a job, but we definitely stepped out on faith, and that brought us here. During my journey, as I shared, led several nonprofits, and the most recent before joining HMHB was working with a national organization focused on early language acquisition and early brain development for infants and toddlers. And through that work, I just met a myriad of individuals, and that's largely how I became aware of HMHB. And when I saw this position opening, I was like, there is no way they're going to hire some young woman from Detroit who isn't a local person, right, to assume this role. But thankfully, they appreciated some of the visions that I have for the organization moving forward. And I think my lived experiences is reflective of many marginalized populations across the state. And I hope that those experiences will humble me in the way that, I lead the organization in supporting the community.
The branch that you work here with in Georgia, do you work just locally, or do you all have national or regional coverage? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting story when you think about HMHBs because, a lot of this sparked from the 60s and JFK's initiative on trying to understand how supporting maternal health, specifically in infant health care, could reduce mental retardation. Well, long story short, a lot of things happened and a lot of communities mobilized. And, HMHB was really founded through kind of a partnership with Grady Memorial Hospital, March of Dimes, a host of other individuals convening together, identifying that there needs to be an organization designed specifically for Georgia, focused on, increasing maternal and infant health outcomes for the state. HMHB was this national entity that really came in the early 80s and said, hey, it makes sense for us to partner. And we thought so as well, specifically because there was some confusion around our branding early on. It's funny, nonprofit organizations, we often lead with our hearts and we're not marketing experts, but the name change really made sense. But from a national perspective now, there aren't a lot of HMHBs that really still exist. There's a handful of us. In Georgia, thankfully, we've been able to kind of stay thumping for, 45 plus years now.
Wow.
And grow.
Wow, that is amazing. 45 years. We know that sustainability is everything as it pertains to an organization to continue to help these mothers and their thriving babies. So we know we're talking about motherhood, and we know without children, mothers would not exist. So tell us a little bit more about your mission and how you help mothers and children within your organization.
Yeah, well, since our founding, we've been on a mission to improve maternal and infant health in Georgia through a few different ways: advocacy, education, and access to vital resources. And we focus on the full spectrum of maternal and child health concerns, from prematurity to maternal mortality. And as I shared, we are a statewide organization and we honor the diversity of our neighbors in the 159 counties across Georgia. And in doing so, we hope to provide resources that are relevant to the individual needs of each community.
Okay.
So when we think about that, we have just a myriad of resources available. When a lot of people hear about HMHB, they often think of our partnership with the Department of Public Health and Prevent Child Abuse Georgia, where we operate our call center, really connecting expectant mothers and postpartum families to the care and resources they need for healthy outcomes. Most recently, we launched our Pickles and Ice Cream platform, which really rolls out of this need from the community to have additional access to educational resources. And since its launch last year, we've had thousands of engagements with our website. And I'm not a social media person. I'm not that old, but I'm old enough to appreciate when it wasn't a thing. So we're learning how to leverage the power of that to really further support communities.
Do you feel that being a mother has had a direct impact on how you lead this organization? If so, why?
Absolutely. So I touched on it a little bit. I fell in love when I was 11, if that's even a thing that you can do.
I'm just passionate early. That's good.
And, my ex and I, we dated through middle school, through high school. He joined the service and we got married and had a baby. Right. And we both were dirt poor, relatively speaking, and had no idea what we were doing. I didn't even know what a doula was. And there were certain things that I didn't want for my child, whether it was getting circumcised or certain vaccinations or whatever it might be, just needing more information and support. And that wasn't available to me. And largely I was talked down to by my care providers. And that was something that really compromised my health and my child's health. So fast forward, it's almost a tale of two mommies, right? When I had a little cash in pocket, right? I started to, become familiar with other resources that were out in the community, but also the tone of the conversation shifted drastically because I had a voice. And even as a woman of color now, there's still barriers that I have to navigate, but at least now I know that there ain't no backing me down. If I feel very passionately about something, that's what's going to happen, right? So I know so many mothers that were like myself or my mom, and when working with the congressional office, talking to rural communities across the country, really, it was illuminating how little we value our moms, those who actually are responsible for our careers, our well-being, whether you're a politician or corporate leader,
Right.
is largely because of mommy, right? So we need to do better. And hopefully, through my service with HMHB, we'll do our part in doing better for families.
Kai, you are absolutely right. And I think that's amazing work that you all are doing, because we don't want our mothers to feel undervalued. They shouldn't. They are very important. And I think it's great what you all are doing to help them feel that way. Now, we have Mother's Day coming right up around the corner. So I know Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies has some programs or activities that may be coming up for mothers that help them feel valuable. Tell us something about that.
It's funny, we kind of missed the mark by a few days. We just hosted our Inspiring Mothers event, which is in its 5th year. And basically, we designed this program and event really to lift up the dynamism really of moms across the state. And each year we pick 6 women, whether, they're, big time physicians or, Mama Sue from the East Side, right? To really lift up how impactful they are to the community and their families, right? In October this year, I shared, we kind of were founded in this collective impact style. And we still convene year over year with all of our stakeholders to plan all of our work for the coming year. So we'll be hosting that then. But we also have a host of educational classes and webinars that individuals can access through our website, www.hmhbga.org.
Kai, thank you for sharing this information. Do you have any other words of encouragement that you'd like to give our viewers or our mothers that are tuning in today?
Well, I think this is going to be sappy, but for all the moms out there, you are enough, okay? I know there's this kind of thing where we think we need to be superheroes, but we are human, and it's okay to need help. And it's okay as long as you lead with love and like my mom and myself, look for resources and support when you are not okay. Everything will be fine. If you ever need any support or help, feel free to reach out to us. Our website again is www.hmhbga.org, and I look forward to hopefully chatting with you soon.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Words of encouragement from Kai Lindbergh, the Executive Director of Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies. Kai, we want to thank you for coming on the show and spending some time with us. And when we return, we're going to talk to the co-founder and CFO of the Way, the Truth, and the Life Christian Center, Pastor Deborah Tuff, affectionately known as my mother, right here on Tuff Talk Show.
If you'd like to be a guest on Tuff Talk Show or know of an interesting person or organization, send us a request to tufftalkshow@email.com.
Right now, the COVID-19 vaccines are available to millions of Americans.
So we urge you to get vaccinated when it's available to you.
That's the first step to ending the pandemic and moving our country forward. It's up to you.
And now, back to Tuff Talk Show.
Welcome back to Tuff Talk Show. I'm your host, Forrest Tuff, and my next special guest, I couldn't wait to get her on, is Pastor Deborah Tuff, my mother. Mom, how you doing today?
Hey, Forrest. How are you, sweetie?
I am doing great. I'm so glad I finally get to get you on this episode of Motherhood. Last year we did an episode on fatherhood, and I said, I can't wait for this year to come around and have my mom. So listen, before we get into your wisdom, please tell our viewers a little bit about where you're from and your upbringing.
Well, yeah, I was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. So I am an original peach here. I came out of a middle-class 2-parent household. My father was a postman, and he also was a business owner, and my mother was a homemaker. And I went to and graduated from the famous Washington High School in 1968, and later went on to be a student at Morris Brown College. I went there with a music scholarship in 1968, but graduated with a degree in elementary education. I changed my mind And that's where it all starts.
All right, you're fresh out of college and you're married. And so, in that time frame, that wasn't so abnormal for people to really get married young. But did you have any aspirations or dreams that you thought about before you got married?
Well, professionally, of course, going to school, you think about, well, what am I majoring in? Being a teacher. But that wasn't really what I aspired to be. From the time that I was a young girl, I always wanted to be a mother and have a large family. I always aspired to be that. And that might sound strange to some people, but those were that was my aspiration. That was my dream.
Growing up in a house with 5 siblings, there were 6 of you total. Do you feel like that was something you wanted after you got married and decided to start a family? Was that camaraderie with your brothers and sisters a thing that you wanted in your household?
Yeah, we had so much fun together. We did a lot of things. And when I was growing up, you had to be very creative in a lot of the things that you did. We didn't get toys every day. We got things on special occasions. So we would come up with ideas. My brothers and sisters were very creative. And so we would just enjoy ourselves over and over again. It was just so much fun. I was raised during a time when segregation was, it was a thing there, but we lived in our own little community. And so my parents we were shielded from a lot of things. We didn't know that was going on. Our place was like a little paid place. And now mind you, I recognize that that's not everybody's story. It's just my story.
Right.
And so we just had a wonderful time, and I loved it. I loved the memories of it. And it was just something I wanted to be.
I remember stories about how when civil rights leaders or community leaders would come in town and they would probably be involved in certain gatherings, that they didn't stay in hotels, they stayed in homes in the neighborhood. Can you tell us how that experience changed you, or some of the things that happened that you saw growing up?
Well, hotels weren't available a lot of time to Blacks, where you could go in 5-star and stay in different hotels. And so people would open up their homes. And my mom was one of those type of people. My father, working at the postal service, they would always have these conventions. And whenever they would have them in Georgia or anything that came along, our doors were always open to those people. My mom would say, well, we're having guests. And, things were so different then. And so we would open up our home to delegates. My mom would have tea parties. I mean, it was just, but back then it was like kids were seen and not heard. So when the friends would come over or the delegates were there, it's like we had to go in another room while they had their serving little tea parties and things. And I don't know, Forrest, it was a great time.
So growing up in that era, seeing these type of things, how did that change you as a mother or affect you into the person that you are now?
Well, there were so many other things that went on in our household. My mother was a great example of a mom. I always felt like she was the epitome of what the Bible says a mother should be. She was full of wisdom. And my mama did a lot of things that I would watch her. She was also a great wife to my father. I would watch how she would serve my dad. She would cook. She would bring him his food. And I would kind of looking like, not me. I'm not going to do that, and at a young age. But I would watch her. And you don't really realize the things that you grow up with and the things that you see leave an impression on your mind. And you grow up with those things. And I remember my mother would tell us things that at that time was very uncomfortable for us to hear, but they were things that would take us far in life. She was full of wisdom. My mother, back in that time, I didn't recognize what a prophet was or prophetess was. I was raised up in a Baptist church. But when I look back, I say, my mom had the gift of a prophetess. She could see things that nobody else could see. And when she imparted wisdom, it's like, oh God, like kids, you didn't want to hear what your parents had to say a lot of times, but she would do it so gently and so very, very sweet. My mother had a very non-judgmental attitude towards us as children when we were growing up. And I like that. I think my mother realized that children had to grow, and that would be things that they would do. One of the things that I took away from it, and I always tell other people when they're raising their kids and they talk about, what they're doing and how disgusted they are, I say, no, you got to pray for your kids, I say, and always remember where you came from. Always remember the things that they're doing. You did it too. Before you got born again, before you got saved, I say, and so now it came back around full circle. You see what they're doing. Now you can impart the wisdom of God into them. I say, and it repeats itself. I say, and because the Bible tells us, train up your child in the way that they should go. When they get old, they won't depart. And if they do, I always tell them there's a cinder block waiting. Everybody has a cinder block. They will run into it and bust their head wide open. Just wait. So I don't know. A lot of things that my mom would share with me, I just took in. I just loved her. She was just so sweet. She was just a kind person. And everybody on the street loved her. My mom was a missionary in her own right. Or my mom would prepare dinner. And if there were kids in the neighborhood that didn't have, what we were blessed with, they would always be at the dinner table. And she had this little thing, we would call each other, John, Rodney, man, school. Mama said, come and eat your dinner. Well, before we could get to the dinner table, some of the other kids in the neighborhood already beat us there. Wow. And there was always enough. My mother fed people. I mean, she was just a great mom. I tell you, she was the best.
Apples don't fall far from the tree. Those same traits that you talked about with her, that giving, that's you. I've watched you growing up. You're always wanting to make sure that we're taken care of. You get on us if something that we shouldn't be into, but you always love us. That's always been your place, just even with our family. You always just trying to make sure that everyone has something. So now this gift that, grandma had, just kind of naturally, this gift of a prophetess and caretaker, you now find yourself in this position, not only as a mother, but now you get married and your husband is called to preach. And now you find yourself as the first lady of a church. How has that been for you in raising kids and now having to walk in that calling in your life?
Well, when I look back on my life, I really think, first of all, I understand and I know that being what people call the first lady or being a pastor's wife, it's a calling, it's a gift from God. Everybody can't walk in that gifting because it's more to it than just the glamour. You do have to have a love for the people of God and the issues and things that they're going through. And so marrying a pastor, I look back, I see where God had his hand on me even then. When I think about some of the things that I went through my life, some of the things, the life experiences, some of the things that my mother shared with me. And now I can walk into those things. When my mother passed in 1993, I thought, I've lost my spiritual mom. I lost my mom. Who else do I have? But it's like everything that she shared with me just began to manifest itself. I believe when God calls you, he equips you to do the work. And certainly he equipped me, even during those very, very young years. And so I'm ever so grateful.
Now I want to switch gears just for a second, because I want to deal with the topic I know that you rarely touch on. Being in the church in the capacity you've had to, bury church members, friends. You've even had to see your mother and father off, and even a brother. But it's different than when you lose a child. And you've had to experience that in losing, my brother Marcus, your son. If you don't mind, could you share with us or the viewers, what was that experience like for you?
Yes, because it was very sudden and it was unexpected. Marcus, for most of the viewers who know him, died at the age of 32 from a massive heart attack. Twin brother to his sister Reagan. And to say the least, I was devastated. I don't even think there are words that can explain the pain, the depthness of the pain that I felt losing a child. And you often hear people say, well, we never expect our children to go before us, but there's an appointed time for everybody. And you have to reckon with the fact that that was an appointed time. Marcus ceased to exist on this earth, but he lived a very, very full life. For those that were at the funeral, you look and you say, my God, there were people from everywhere. So he lived a life, but as a mother, oh my God, I cannot even explain. Now, I can sit here and say that I had all the faith in the world and I wasn't moved because my son was in heaven.
Yeah.
That is not the case. I was, it's like having to pick up, because as a pastor's wife, sometimes you don't get the luxury of just having the type or grieving the way you really, well, let me just say it this way, Forrest. I grieved the way I wanted to grieve. And I thank God for my husband. I have a wonderful husband, and we had to walk through this thing together. Yeah. And we had to walk through it together and then come out in the open smiling and still praying for people, still doing what we were called to do, but yet going through that grieving process. And so it'll be 10 years in December. And when I talk about it, sometimes it's almost like it was yesterday, because you never, ever, ever really forget. That hole is left there because that's that missing one, the one that's still missing, you know. But you get through it, and God helps you to get through it. I never got to the point where I blame God. You know, a lot of people get angry with God. God, why did you do this? A lot of things we won't know until we get to heaven. And so I have to rely on the fact that God knew what he was doing. He allowed it to happen, because he could have stopped it, but he allowed it to happen. And so I just have to rest, and he has given me peace, and he comforts me. And like I said, I have a wonderful husband who's always there by my side, and I have wonderful children, you know, and that I just totally adore. So he left me with 4 beautiful kids. And so I'm at peace.
They say, if you can, give a person their roses while they're here. You know, let them know how much they mean while they're here. And I'm glad I have this opportunity to tell you how much I appreciate you as a mother. You've been so supportive over the years. You've always been there. You've been there for my family, for my kids, for my wife, just anything that we need. And I really, truly appreciate you. And I just want to tell you, I love you. I love you for who you've been in supporting my family and helping me to become the man I am today. And for our viewers, are there any words that you want to share with them before we depart today?
Well, there a lot of young women are going through a lot of challenges, you know. Like I said, sometimes it can look like a person have a perfect life. Nobody has a perfect life. You know, don't feel bad about how you were raised or how you were brought up. What are you doing now? You know, you might not have come out of a 2-parent home. You might not have had some of the things that I even talked about. But if you turn around and give it all to God, he will teach you. God will teach you what to be as a mother. You will have challenges, but there will also be joys. One of the things that I always like to leave with young mothers and families is that the best career that you can ever have is being a parent. You get one shot at it. And it is the best investment that you can ever have. There's no amount of money that can take the place of being a mother.
And that concludes another episode of Tuff Talk Show. I hope you enjoyed this segment on motherhood with our special guest, Kai Lindbergh of Healthy Mothers, Healthy Babies, and Pastor Deborah Tuff of the Way, the Truth, and the Life Christian Center, my mother, who tells me she brought me in this world and she can always take me out. I want to leave you with this final thought. Remember to tell that special person in your life how much they mean, because mothers matter.